Call the case. I would like that the teams present the new faces that are with them.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Your Honors. This is a situation in the Republic of Kenya. In the case of the prosecutor versus Francis Kirili Muthaura, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Mohammed Hussein Ali. Case reference ICC-01/09-02/11. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you, court officer. Now the team of the prosecutor. For the record, in addition to the prosecutor himself, is there some new faces? No. The defense team of Mr. Muthaura? You do not.
Madam President, Your Honours, good afternoon. No new faces.
You do not. The defense team, Mr. Kay?
We remain the same, Your Honour.
You remain
Thank
the
you.
same. And finally, Mr. Munari, do you have some new faces?
Madam President, Your Honours, we have a new team member who has been upstairs all the time. His name is Paul Bradfield. He is joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Munari. You're welcome to the courtroom. Mr. Anya?
Good afternoon, Madam President. Good afternoon, Your Honours. There are no new faces for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
On behalf of the chamber, we just have with us Mr. Anderson Carvalho, who is a legal assistant, and he's working with us. This is his first attendance here in the courtroom. We are already approaching the questioning of Mr. Kenyatta. Mr. K, you would like to address the chamber?
No, I was going to call Mr. Kenyatta
Yes.
on behalf of Your Honour.
Yes,
if that
please.
was permissible.
Yes.
Mr. Kenyatta, please.
Yesterday, we proceeded with the swearing in, so now we directly continue with the questioning. First, it will be Mr. K, thereafter the prosecutor's team, finally Mr. K.
Thank you, Your Honour. Good afternoon, Mr. Kenyatta.
Good afternoon.
The first questions that I ask you today are going to concern the early stages of your political career. And it has been a fact in this courtroom that your first election campaign that you fought to become a Member of Parliament was 1997. Is that right?
That is correct, Your Honours.
The party that you joined and on whose behalf you fought that election was the KANU party. Is that right?
That is correct, Your Honours.
Now, I'd like you now, if you would, if you could tell the court about the ethnic structure or political alliances that made up the KANU party. Was it a party that represented one ethnic group? How would you describe it?
I would describe KANU as a national party, a party that included most of the communities, especially the smaller communities in Kenya. But the major, let's say, ethnic groups in the country during the 1997 election were not really in KANU. They belonged to other parties. So I would call KANU a national party, but at the time of the 97 election it was composed mainly of members of the smaller or minority communities in Kenya.
At that stage in 1997, who was the leader of the KANU party?
Your Honour, the leader of KANU at the time was was the former president, President Daniel Arap Moi.
I've referred you to the 1997 election. Did you win a parliamentary seat at that election?
No, Your Honours, I did not win my parliamentary seat at that particular election.
After 1997, did you remain in the KANU party?
Yes, I did, since I was at the time the party chairman for Thika district. So I remained a member of the party, though I had not won my parliamentary seat.
Now, before we get to the next election at 2002, and keeping the chronology, I'd like you to watch a very short video, EVD PT D13 00530. If we go back, I don't think the screen was on for the... Thank you. If that could be now played.
Members of the Mungiki sect are petitioning the government to stop what they call illegal harassment of its members. In a statement issued shortly after they marched through city streets, they complained that their members have been arrested and tortured by police. Outside the Jomo Kenyatta Mausoleum, the group burnt an effigy of Uhuru Kenyatta, claiming that Uhuru had betrayed the ideas his father stood for. But in a quick rejoinder, the Nairobi KANU youth accused the sect of fronting for an unnamed politician in Central Province.
Thank you. Did you recollect that particular event we saw there, which was the 8th of August 2000?
Yes, I do.
Did you witness it yourself?
Your Honours, I didn't witness it myself since I wasn't present, but I did see the TV, because it was on news on TV, so I saw it on TV.
Perhaps you could explain to us what that particular issue was about, what was going on that day, and why were these people known as the Mungiki burning an effigy of you?
Well, Your Honours, at the time there was a crackdown again on this particular sect, and they blamed that crackdown on the government. And me being a member of the ruling party at the time, they associated myself with the problems that they were experiencing, and I was the target, therefore, of their anger against the government at the time.
Thank you. I'd like to now move to the 2002 election. Is it correct that you stood as the presidential candidate for KANU against Mwai Kibaki?
Yes, Your Honours, that is correct.
Just taking the politics then at that 2002 election, can you inform the court the policies that KANU fought that election upon?
Your Honours, the key platform of our election at the time was one united Kenya, which was basically the founding principles of the Kenya African National Union, of which now I was their presidential candidate, and also the drive an initiative now towards dealing with a major problem at the time, which was youth unemployment in the country. So our campaign was based on a youth platform and the need to unify the country going forward.
As the presidential candidate, were you also the leader of KANU?
No, at that time, Your Honors, the party chairman remained as the president, who was then Daniel Arap Moi, but I was one of the 4 vice chairmen of the party.
We've heard in court over the last few days that President Mwai Kibaki is a Kikuyu, and you are also a Kikuyu. Perhaps you could describe to the court particular issues arising for you at that stage, being a Kikuyu standing against President Kibaki as he now is.
Well, Your Honors, at the time there was a strong feeling that maybe I was out to divide the Kikuyu vote, and there was also a build-up at the same time, a mood for change, given the fact that also President Moi had been in power at that stage for 24 years, and a mood was developing that there was a need in certain quarters, that was the argument, to replace KANU. And many felt at the time that Moi was using me to continue his rule, and largely, especially within my own community of the Kikuyu, it was felt that I was really, as they called it at the time, a project of the former president, and there was a mood that I should not be elected because that would be a continuation of the rule of Moi. That was the perception, and that was the attitude that was being pushed from certain quarters.
Perhaps you can describe then what your politics stood for at that time in 2002. What you were campaigning upon and what you personally believed in.
Your Honors, my politics at the time, and still is today, is that we need a united Kenya. We need a country where all communities in Kenya could feel that they were accommodated, could feel that they were part and parcel, not just of the government, but of the entire socio-economic structure. And that was my key platform. Coupled with that, as I said earlier, I was also very keen on seeing a new or a younger generation participating in politics, because I did feel that that would also help in dealing with some of the key social problems that we were having, which were largely related to youth unemployment, and that was throughout the country, and that was a major problem that I felt needed to be dealt with, and I still feel needs to be dealt with.
As we know, President Kibaki won that election. How did you accept defeat in that election by him?
Your Honors, after the campaign period was over and the elections were concluded, when the time tallying began of the votes. After some time, it did become apparent to myself that the direction of the voting was leading to a win by my opponent in the election, who was then Mwai Kibaki, who was the leader of the NARC party. And at the same time, given the fact that it was a transitional election, that we were moving from a president who had been there for over 24 years and a party that had been in power since independence, there was growing tensions because there were rumors around that the ruling party would not give in or would not accept or concede defeat. And I felt in order to lower the tensions that were prevailing in the country, because at the same time there was talk that there was going to be a mobilization of people to march to State House, to take over by force. So I felt that there was really no need for us to head in that direction, and in order to reduce the tensions, and after consulting with my colleagues, we felt it necessary to announce that myself, as the candidate who was following Mwai Kibaki, I should announce that I had accepted and conceded defeat in that particular election, and we went ahead and organized for a press conference where I announced that I had conceded defeat despite the fact that the election tallying was not over, in order to reduce the tensions that were beginning to build in the country.
That concession of defeat in 2002 to avoid those tensions you speak about, how was that received by your own party, KANU?
Well, at first there were those who felt that we should wait for the election results to fully come in. But like I said, Your Honors, it was quite clear to me at that stage that President Kibaki was actually going to win. So I didn't feel the need to wait, as was being suggested by some. And at the same time, we did not want to see those particular tensions that were beginning to rise. Like I said, there had been statements of, a march towards State House and etc. And I didn't think that it was necessary for us to get into that. So I felt that the right thing to do at the time was to concede, because the direction that the vote tallying was going was clearly indicating that President Kibaki was going to win that particular election. So I didn't feel that it was necessary for us to wait until the final results had come in.
I'd like to ask you some general questions now about clashes and tensions at the time of election results in Kenya. From your political experience, did each of those elections, 1997 and 2002, was there any post-election violence or violence at the time of the elections that marked those two campaigns?
Your Honor, since the advent of multi-party politics in Kenya, the first election was in 1992, and in 1992 there was witnessed in certain parts of the country a violence between communities, and the same also occurred in 1997. And it was, like I'm saying, those fears that I had, given the fact that, as I said, in the 2002 elections, similar tensions were also beginning to build up. And that is why I felt, in order to avoid the kind of scenario that we had seen in 1992 and 97, there was need to concede and to allow the country to calm down so that we could begin with a new government. And basically that is what I did, because election violence has been seen in Kenya, like I said, since the advent of multi-party politics in 1992.
Perhaps you could tell us from 1992 what form of violence there's been. What shape does it take? What happens? Is it rival parties or ethnic groups? How would you describe the particular nature and the causes of it?
Your Honours, the causes are more or less ethnic type tensions, where communities who belong or are supporting different presidential candidates would mobilize themselves to evict those who they felt were not supporting their particular ethnic group. I mean, so I would say it was more or less not party-based, but ethnic-based. That is the kind of violence that we tended to see.
Was it losers against victors?
I don't quite understand, Your Honours.
Say in a particular constituency, if the particular group lost and their candidate didn't succeed, did they then try and take it out on the victors, or didn't it even matter what the results were? Was it a violence that came about because you had affiliated yourself in a particular direction?
It wasn't necessarily about parliamentary candidates, or it wasn't constituency based. It was more around the presidential elections. Let's take both the 92 and 97. It was in some areas where the Kalenjin community felt that those living in the Rift Valley should support the candidate from the Rift Valley, who at that time happened to be a Kalenjin. And if they didn't vote for that particular candidate, they were being asked to move out of the areas they occupied if they weren't going to support the political direction of that community that was in that particular region. So I think that was more or less the form it took.
Thank you. Another political event that we've seen mentioned in relation to the information and documents in this case was the constitutional referendum in 2005. First of all, if you could explain what the referendum was about at that time.
Your Honour, as I've said, we over the years had since independence, a number of changes to the Constitution, culminating in the removal of Section 2A of in the Constitution that barred more than one party. And when that was done, there was the introduction, as I said, of multi-party politics. However, there was a feeling that that removal of that section alone was not enough to allow a proper democracy to flourish. And there was then a move towards having a comprehensive review of the Constitution and the need for a new Constitution, so as to be able to deal with some of the social, developmental, and indeed ethnic challenges that the country had gone through over a period of time. So really, the new Constitution was aimed at dealing with some of the social, economic and ethnic and land issues and many other issues that Kenyans felt needed to be redressed.
Did President Kibaki's government then produce a constitution which was submitted for a national referendum?
There was a constitution that was developed, not necessarily by President Kibaki's government, because really it was a process that was being driven by a conference that had been held and ultimately driven through a parliamentary process. But there was a draft that was finally approved by Parliament somewhere in 2005.
Which side of the debate did you eventually support? Yes for reform of the Constitution on that particular draft, or no against it?
Your Honours, at that time, my party felt that there were a number of issues that the Constitution that had been approved did not take into account. And we adopted a stance as a party that those issues were issues that needed to be incorporated in the new Constitution. And therefore we felt we could not support the draft as it was, and therefore we took a position not to support the Constitution, and we went for, during the referendum, we went on the no side, that the Constitution should not be approved at that particular time.
And Kibaki's NARC or NARC party, what was the position of that party?
Your Honours, the position of that party was that the Constitution should be adopted the way it was, so their position was yes.
Let's turn now to 2007. There's evidence before the court, as we know, that your KANU party was originally within a party that had been formed called the ODM. Is that right?
That is correct. What, Your Honours, happened was that during the referendum of 2005, members who had joined President Kibaki in the 2002 election, many of them who belonged to what was called then the, if I remember correctly, I think it was LDP party. Though they were in government, were also opposed to the Constitution. So they also, for the Constitution, did not support the government position, but rather also joined us and supported the no position. And thereafter, the noes were had the symbol of an orange, and it sort of began to take the life after the referendum of a political grouping that had many people who had all participated in the no. And that is what began to take the shape of a political organization gearing itself to participate in the 2007 general elections.
Did you remain with your KANU party inside that political group?
Yes, we remained as KANU. We did not dissolve KANU. We remained as KANU as a political party.
Did there come a time in 2007 when you took your KANU party out of the alliance of the Orange?
Yes, there did come a time in 2007 where I won't say I, but the party itself decided that it was no longer comfortable within the political arrangement that was now calling itself the Orange Democratic Movement.
And what was the reason for you and some of your colleagues to leave that particular group?
Your Honours, the main reason was there was a feeling amongst some of us that the direction that the Orange Democratic Movement at the time was taking was a direction that was creating tensions, especially between communities, that was not helping put the country together, but rather there were rising feelings or ethnic tensions that were coming out as a result of different ethnic groupings not necessarily feeling, or there was a sense of animosity, if I can, just for the lack of a better word, that was developing amongst people. And like I said, KANU from independence as a national party has always stood for one united country, one country with a strong central government. And the mood that was within the ODM was more for a Majimbo or a regional type government. But the understanding that was being carried in many parts was that areas belonged to certain communities as opposed to a country belonging to all, and that was one of the major reasons why some of us did not feel comfortable within that particular arrangement.
The court has before it various documents which reflect that phrase, Majimbo, M-A-J-I-M-B-O. And the particular issues concerning Majimbo, if you could explain them to the court as to what you mean by that, what structure did Majimbo envisage, or did it stand for?
Majimbo was more for a federal type structure, and there is nothing wrong with a federal type structure, except for the fact that in many circumstances it was taken to mean the fact that there were sort of exclusive areas for certain communities, and that was really the key problem. Whereas our position was that what Kenyans were really saying they wanted is not necessarily to split the country up, but rather what we were looking for was more of a fiscal decentralization to allow greater participation, especially at the grassroots level in decision making. And we felt that that is what the country needed, especially as we were moving now towards an East African community. There was no need to split the country when we were looking even more towards greater regional integration. And that really was the issue.
Did you have any feelings whether that policy of Majimbo would encourage ethnic groups to be amenable and compatible with each other, or was it an exclusionary policy?
Like I said, Majimbo really means federalism. However, the understanding of many was not necessarily that we were getting a federal system of government. The understanding that was being carried out by many was that regions belonged to ethnic communities. So it was my feeling that were we to allow that sort of situation to occur, it would result in greater ethnic tensions as opposed towards reducing ethnic tensions and creating a more united government. And that was one of the problems that I had with the Majimbo argument.
Did all the representatives of KANU leave the Orange movement, or did some remain and not follow your direction or your party direction?
No, not all left. Some remained within the Orange, and in actual fact, KANU almost sort of split into two between those who wanted to remain within the Orange movement and those who felt that they were not comfortable with that particular argument. But there were also those who felt they were not comfortable with the nomination process that the ODM itself was following.
It's a matter of record. This was September 2007. So yourself and your colleagues who left the Orange movement, where then did you go? What was the direction that you all went?
Well, first we had deliberations within our own National Executive Council, and during those deliberations we were looking at the options of either fielding a presidential candidate as a party, or looking to see if we could participate with others. And after lengthy discussions at the NEC level, we agreed that we could also open up channels and discuss at that time with President Kibaki, who was also seeking re-election, because there was also a good number within KANU who felt that despite the fact that we were on opposing sides in the 2002 election, the development record of President Kibaki over the 5 years that he had been president was such that we could support his candidacy for a second term, while we gave ourselves time as KANU to reorganize, to reorganize ourselves to mount a challenge in future elections.
So did it come about that the PNU was thereafter formed, in which the incumbent president, Mwai Kibaki, was the leader of the PNU?
Your Honours, after deliberation, our own National Delegates Conference agreed that for the 2007 election we would support President Kibaki, but they also passed and resolved that we would not dissolve our party, we would stay as a party, as KANU, support the presidential candidacy of Mwai Kibaki, but we would field our own parliamentary and civic candidates under the KANU umbrella. So we joined a loose coalition of many other parties who had also agreed to support the presidential re-election of Mwai Kibaki, but who also felt that they wanted to field their own candidates. And that loose coalition is what at that time was the PNU coalition that came together. But in terms of parliamentary and civic seats, we had our own individual candidates, but when it came to the presidential vote, we all supported the presidential bid of Mwai Kibaki.
You would have heard me in court yesterday refer to the 17th of November and 18th of November 2007, which was the time of the parliamentary and civic nominations for the elections. Can you perhaps describe what process that was that took place at that time?
Your Honours, during that particular time, what was happening was we had now to go through the process of nominating who our candidates were going to be for the civic elections and for the parliamentary elections. And at that time, there was a move and a drive under the chairmanship of the then Vice President Moody Awori to ensure, or to try and ensure, that as much as we were all putting up candidates, they wanted to see that we had a nomination process, because there was a feeling that if each party were to put up a candidate in the main election, that would result in a split vote on our side. So there was now this drive that we needed to have a nomination first and foremost amongst parties that were supporting President Kibaki, in order to see if we could come up with one candidate through a nomination, be it KANU or PNU or Ford Kenya for that matter, and many of the other parties. So that is the exercise that was currently underway during that particular period, to nominate the candidates who were going to be presented before the Electoral Commission for the main general election for civic and parliamentary seats. So it was quite a difficult time, yes.
I referred the court to a diary, you may remember, yesterday that recorded 25 MPs lost their seats, and referred to the process continuing from the 17th of November into the 18th of November. What particular problems were faced by you as KANU chairman, and indeed your party, in resolving these nominations?
Your Honours, what was happening was that after we held the nomination process, there were many candidates who felt that the nomination process was not conducted in a proper manner, and hence they were not willing to accept the results of the nomination process. So there was a lot of discussion at the time going on, trying to get various candidates to accept the outcomes of the nomination process, because we were now running out of time, because the Electoral Commission had given deadlines as to when the names of the respective candidates had to be submitted who were going to participate now in the general election. And there were a lot of disputes in very many parts of the country between candidates who had gone through the nomination process but were not willing to accept the results of that nomination process. So as party leader in KANU, and not just myself, all the other party leaders, there was a lot of intense discussion and a lot of dialogue going on, trying to see if we could get candidates to accept, or how we could get compromises so that we could meet the Electoral Commission deadline.
And where did these discussions take place?
Well, the discussions were taking place in various places, because we had, like I said, we had our own candidates. So there was the KANU team that was meeting at our own headquarters. There was teams that were also meeting up at the PNU headquarters. But ultimately, we all had to sort of generally abandon those particular places because there was a lot of commotion as many candidates and their supporters were coming to these various headquarters demanding that they be given their respective certificates. And we ultimately had to retreat to a place where we could try and sort out this problem that was occurring between various parties through this council that I said had been formed.
So given your position, were you involved in discussions in the KANU offices as well as the PNU officers?
Yes, I was involved because we were just moving from place to place trying to get agreement. But like I said, when commotion arose, we retreated to another building that had been set aside in Kileleshwa, where we continued with those discussions basically through the night.
And which of the parties, KANU or the PNU, were at Kileleshwa?
Like I said, there were many parties that were involved because we had NAC Kenya that was participating in those elections. We had the PNU itself. We had KANU. We had Ford Kenya. I can't remember all the parties because there was a whole myriad of them. But there were very many parties that, like I said, had formed this loose coalition supporting Kibaki, but were not necessarily eager to surrender their positions with regard to parliamentary and civic seats.
Just taking the PNU, did that have to relocate to a secret location? And if so, could you tell us where?
It was I think it was a building in Kileleshwa, Your Honours. There was a place where we had where materials and stuff were being kept, but for that particular period, we chose it as a location for us to be able to meet because it was not a well-known location, so we could keep away the huge crush of candidates who were looking for certificates. So we had to move and find a place where we could sort of meet and discuss in an atmosphere of relative calm.
A man called Witness 4 for the prosecution, whose name you know but do not mention it. You know that name. Have you ever met that person?
Your Honours, I have never met that person referred to as Witness 4.
On the night of the 17th of November, at about 9 o'clock in the evening, did you go to the Yaya Centre in Nairobi and, as he alleges, meet him and some members of the Mungiki, along with your personal assistant, and speak to them for a period of time slightly over an hour? Did that event happen?
Your Honour, that event never happened.
Have you been to the Yaya Centre with your assistant? We named two candidates for that position because of the name disclosed by Witness 4, and I think you're aware of the common surname. With either of those gentlemen, have you met such people in the Yaya Centre, or have you been to the Yaya Centre with either of those gentlemen?
Your Honour, the Yaya Centre is really not a meeting place. I've never been with either my assistant or anybody else to who I work with to Yaya Center. But I have been to Yaya Center with my wife and my family. That's where she does her shopping, and I don't think that's a place I'm going to go and take my political colleagues.
We all know who you are. If you went to a bar in the Yaya Center with a group of Mungiki, would that excite interest amongst the people around that location?
Your Honors, I don't know whether it would excite interest or not, but it would definitely attract attention, without a doubt.
Thank you. The next date I'm going to go to, because I don't know what the judges will make of evidence, but witness 4 mentioned another date, the 25th of November 2007, which he may have withdrawn, where a meeting between you and he with your personal assistant took place at the Yaya Center in the evening of the 25th of November 2007. Did such a meeting take place?
Your Honors, I didn't quite hear that. Is it another meeting?
Yeah.
I didn't quite hear that question.
Witness 4 made an earlier statement when he alleged that a meeting had taken place on the 25th of November 2007 at the Yaya Center between you, him with a group of Mungiki, as well as your assistant.
Your Honors, I have never held a meeting with Mungiki or anybody at the Yaya Center. I want to repeat again that I have been to the Yaya Center, but I have been in my capacity as with my wife and my children, like many other families who go to the Yaya Center, but I have never been there for any meeting with any person.
The 25th of November is a date we know in this court because that was the date where there was a big youth rally in Uhuru Park, Nairobi. And eventually President Kibaki came and spoke to the assembled youth. Did you go to that rally as well?
Your Honors, yes, I did attend that rally at Uhuru Park.
And at that rally, did you address the rally and the people assembled?
Yes, Your Honors, I was one of the speakers at that rally.
After that rally took place, can you recollect where you went?
After the rally at Uhuru Park?
Yes.
After the rally at Uhuru Park ended quite late because I think it was ending between 6:30, 7 o'clock. And it had been a long day for me since I had already been in the morning for another rally in Bomet in the Rift Valley. And that had required a very early departure in the morning in order to attend the Bomet rally and come back and attend the Uhuru Park rally. So after the Uhuru Park rally, I left for home.
Thank you. Let's now turn to the next date, the 26th of November 2007, the day after the Uhuru Park rally. And we saw yesterday a video clip showing the KICC centre and you going up the steps into the KICC and later delegates going to the Intercontinental for a lunch, as put in a newspaper photograph. On the 26th of November, that day, did you go to State House in Nairobi and meet there a group of Mungiki in a tent with the President, with Ambassador Muthara, and several others?
Your Honours, I did not attend any meeting with Mungeki or anybody else at State House on that date that is being referred to, or for that matter on any other date.
Did you go to State House that morning to meet the young people or the youth who had assembled in a special meeting with President Kibaki to present a youth charter? Were you part of that event on the 26th of November?
No, Your Honours, I was not part of that event because I was not one of the organisers of the event. Those who attended, I think, were the organisers of the event that, or the rally that was there at Uhuru Park. So in attendance, I think it was Kibaki Tena, if I'm not wrong, Kibaki Tena, who had organised that rally, and I think it was their members who had attended. And like I said, when we as KANU joined the Kibaki Alliance, we had our youth representative, who was a member now of Kibaki Tena as part of the presidential campaign. So he attended as a member of the Kibaki Tena team. We did not attend since, like I said, we were not even organizers of that rally. We just attended the rally in our capacity as party leaders.
You saw the video clip that was shown during these proceedings of President Kibaki on that day at State House, filmed with the young people. Had you seen that video clip before?
I had seen that video clip before, yes.
Did you recognize, I don't want you to name names, but did you recognize people within that video clip as people you knew?
The two people I can say I recognized in that video was Mr. Badi Ali, who was the KANU youth representative, who is in that video, and Ambassador Kamati, who was a member of my, was part of my presidential campaign team. So those two I did recognize from the video.
And do those people know you?
Yes, they do.
So let's now find out what the purpose of going to the KICC on that date of the 26th of November actually was. What was happening when we saw you and other people going up a red carpet into the building?
Your Honor, as I had said earlier, we had first and foremost gone through a period of party nominations. And that was the problem I was telling you we were experiencing in trying to sort out all the nomination problems that were going on. On that particular day, it was the day after the nominations now had been concluded and party candidates had now gone to submit their final certificates to their respective returning officers in the constituencies. So we now had parliamentary and civic candidates, and there was a meeting of parliamentary and civic candidates from all over the country at KICC that was supposed to have been chaired by President Kibaki, because that was pretty much now the beginning of the main campaign period. However, like I said, we were having major problems with the nominations because there were many who did not accept the results of the nominations and hence went and submitted still their names to the Electoral Commission under different parties. So what then was supposed to have been an opportunity for President Kibaki to meet candidates who had been sponsored under now PNU became now quite chaotic, because all the other candidates who had lost the nominations and had gone forward and presented their papers were also present at the meeting. So it became again quite chaotic, to the point that President Kibaki, who was supposed to come and address us, did not come and address us at that particular meeting, and it was the Vice President who then took charge of the meeting.
When did you know that President Kibaki was going to skip the meeting, which is the headline in the newspaper we have seen?
I think the Vice President informed us, after we had tried to go through the sorting out of who would be allowed in the meeting and who would not be allowed into the meeting, and we couldn't sort that out. That was around 11 when the Vice President informed us that the President would not be coming to KICC, but instead the President had said that he would give all members, including those who were standing on other political parties, he would give all members lunch at the Intercontinental Hotel. So it was at that stage then that the meeting sort of was abandoned, and we all moved to the Intercontinental for the lunch that President Kibaki now was going to give all members who were present at that meeting, whether they were PNU or from other parties, so long as they were supporting him, Your Honours.
If I can now ask you about timing on that particular day, can you recollect when the meeting at the KICC that we've seen on the film, when that started, or when you arrived?
I think we were arriving somewhere towards 9 o'clock or so in the morning.
And what time did you leave the KICC?
I think it was just around, must have been around 12:30, because we all basically stayed there. The Intercontinental was walking distance, so we didn't really need to move from the place, so we all pretty much stayed there until the lunch appointment at the Intercontinental, which was walking distance from the Kenyatta International Conference Center.
And did President Kibaki go to the lunch that he'd organized?
Yes, Your Honours, President Kibaki did eventually come to the lunch.
And when was the first time that you saw him that day?
Your Honours, it was at the lunch, when he came to the lunch.
Let's move on now to the elections of 2007. I'm going to go to that period at 30th of December 2007, when the election result was declared. And we know that that declaration took place at the KICC. Had you been to the KICC on the days before the final election result was announced?
Yes, Your Honours. On top of being a presidential campaigner during the elections, all of us who were really presidential campaigners or coordinators of the presidential campaign were also presidential agents. And therefore, after the elections were done and I had cast my ballot in my home constituency of Gatundu South, I then proceeded later in the evening to the Kenyatta International Conference Center to begin my duty as a presidential agent at the National Tallying Center.
Can you remember which date that was prior to the 30th of December?
Your Honors, if the election was on the 27th, it was from the 27th night that we began our duties at the Kenyatta International Conference Center.
We know from evidence the returns started to come in, culminating in the final tally on the 30th of December. And so on each of those days before the 30th, would you attend the KICC as part of your duties?
Your Honors, we basically lived at KICC until the 30th when the final results were announced from the 27th.
At the time of the announcement of the result on the 30th of December, what was the atmosphere like in the KICC? What was happening amongst the political groups?
Your Honor, as well, it was quite highly charged. The atmosphere at KICC was quite highly charged because as the results were coming in, there were times when it looked like the ODM was ahead, but then there were other results being waited for, and then the PNU would go ahead. But ultimately, it became even more charged when it now became clear that PNU now was not only just closing the gap, but had also now, or the PNU candidate, in this case Mwai Kibaki, was closing the gap and was now coming closer to Raila Odinga. And at that time we started hearing all sorts of comments, the results now are being rigged, the results that are coming in are not correct, etc., etc. So the atmosphere was charged.
Before the result was announced and before this period at the KICC, had you had any information that your political rivals were going to make those allegations that the election was rigged if they lost?
Yes, Your Honors, it was already in the media. It was in the media with various press conferences that had been held by a number of ODM leaders alleging that there was a plot that was being hatched to rig the elections.
And was there a plot to rig the elections?
Your Honors, not that I was aware of, no.
In relation to reaction around the country, around Kenya, at that time on the 30th of December, when the result was announced, did you have any information at that time as to the feelings, what was happening, what the reaction was to it?
Your Honors, at that stage, like I said, we were largely at the KICC ourselves, so I was not really much in touch with what was going on because our key focus at that stage was the tallying that was going on at the center where we were at. So I can only talk about what, or the sense that I was getting from within the building where I was. And that is what I'm saying was quite highly charged amongst the different parties that were there to oversee the tallying. That is what I can comment on.
Did you go to the inauguration of President Kibaki that day at State House, where he was sworn in as president after the chairman of the ECK announced formally the result?
Yes, Your Honours, on the 30th, I can't remember, but it was late afternoon, after the election results were announced, myself and a number of the other agents who were there then proceeded to State House, because we had been told that the inauguration ceremony would be held that afternoon. So we did leave now the tallying center and moved to the State House for the inauguration ceremony.
And what sort of ceremony was that? How did that event take place? Describe it.
Your Honour, it took place in the grounds of State House, where members of Parliament who had been elected, there were also members of Parliament who had also lost their elections but had supported Kibaki, as well as other distinguished gentlemen. I saw there was the Chief Justice who was there, there was the Attorney General was also present, former cabinet ministers were also present. We also had the various heads of we had the Chief of General Staff was also there, as well as the heads of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. It was a state function in a nutshell. It was basically a state function.
Were there any international delegates there?
I don't know about international delegates, but there was definitely representation of international media who I think were there to cover the event. But there was, I know the international media was there, but I don't know if there were any diplomats there on that particular day, because like I said, I arrived pretty much just before the function started, so I really just took my seat, and I can't, except those people I recognized who I've just mentioned, the members of Parliament who had either won or even those who had lost. Many of them who I knew who were there, as well as the Chief Justice and others who were on the podium who I recognized.
There's a document from the Muthara team as part of their disclosure that records you arriving at 5 p.m. Would that be something you'd agree with or disagree with?
That would be correct, because like I said, it was late afternoon. We left the KICC as soon as the final results were announced by the chair of the Electoral Commission.
And did you attend that function with anyone? Were you accompanied by anyone when you left the KICC?
I was accompanied by one of my personal assistants, yes.
And if you could name him?
I was accompanied by Jomo Geshaga.
And the event that took place at State House, how long did it take?
It was about an hour or so.
How many people attended?
I would say approximately 200 or so. About 200.
we've seen the swearing in, that's been exhibited on video film. Was there any form of reception?
No, Your Honours. After the swearing-in ceremony, the function basically ended. There was no reception after that.
And what did you do? Where did you go?
Your Honours, basically after 4 days of no sleep, I went home to sleep.
I think it's witness 12 for the prosecution alleges that on the 30th of December he attended State House with others and that there was a meeting with the Mungiki and yourself and senior PNU officials. Is that agreed by you or not? Did that event take place?
Your Honours, that event did not take place. It did not take place. The people who were there were largely parliamentary candidates of parties that had supported Kibaki who had won. There were a number of former members of parliament who had lost their seats. Other candidates who had also lost their seats, some of them who were also cabinet ministers who were also there. And Your Honours, these were people from all over the country, from different parts of the country who were there. So, I mean, it would be impossible for an event like that to be graced by Mungiki without raising eyebrows. It's not possible. Somebody would have seen them somewhere.
I take it you've been to State House many times, is that right?
I have been to State House many times, Your Honour.
Perhaps you can describe the sort of place it is, how it's situated, how it's guarded, what facilities are in there, who works there, who lives there. What's the structure of the place? Perhaps you can give a description to the court.
Your Honours, it's the official residence of the head of state of the Republic of Kenya. And it is a state building like any you would find in any part of the world. Undoubtedly it is heavily secured. It is situated in the middle of Nairobi, in the heart of Nairobi, on a hill. There are 3 key entrances, all leading out to main roads of Nairobi. And it is basically a very formal, organized building. I think there must be over people in their hundreds at least working within that building. And it is a very formal building and structured and organized in a very formal manner. It's not a building where you can just walk in and out, as you say, unless you're properly invited through proper channels.
Is there a permanent staff at State House?
Yes, there is a permanent staff who are in residence because the staff housing is also within the compound.
I'm just taking another example from the evidence alleged by these witnesses. A city hopper bus driving into State House full of Mungiki would that be something that would be observed or just pass unnoticed?
Your Honors, the way I know the State House that I know, unless we're referring to another State House, the State House that I know, it would be impossible for anybody to enter that building without being recorded and noted, especially large groups like that. I mean, it would be impossible for them to go unnoticed, from either the security from the gates to the security within the building to the staff to who work within there, to the kitchen staff, to the office staff who are there. It would be impossible for a large group to just walk in and not be noted by somebody.
We're here in Holland at the moment in Europe, but the city hopper buses, perhaps you could describe, I don't know if their honours have ever seen a city hopper bus in Nairobi. Perhaps you could describe what they're like. I believe you know the man who owns the city hopper business.
Well, the city hoppers are basically public transport that mainly based in Nairobi, and they're large green buses. I think they're green in color, and they basically do commuting of Nairobi passengers within the city of Nairobi. It's like equivalent of public transport.
Shiny and new?
Well, I won't call them shiny and new, no.
Perhaps a bit of age that you could give on the buses that you see, and the size of them.
Well, I mean, I can't give age. I can't give age, but the size are, 20, 25 seater type buses. Age, I can't say.
And they drive around the tracks around Nairobi and the streets. Is that right?
Yes, yes, Your Honours, yes.
An army truck is another one, with Mungiki in an army truck driving into State House. As you go through the main gate of State House, what do you see as you go in through the main gate?
I don't quite understand. What do you mean?
Is it driving straight up to a building or a courtyard, or is it lawns with shrubs and
No, it's driving, it's got a processional type of entrance, Your Honours. To one side there's the main building, and to the other side are the grounds where sometimes events are held.
An army truck with Mungiki driving in for their own reception in the grounds of State House, to be provided with clothing and food and drink. Would that go unnoticed, or would you think that would be able to be observed by people taking place as an event?
Your Honours, the only time I've known army trucks to enter State House is during the coup, because the military does not participate in civilian activities. It is the police who have the responsibility of guarding the building. So it would be impossible for a military truck to be within the grounds of State House. They have no responsibility within there, so it would not enter that without raising major eyebrows as to what the military were doing within the State House compound.
And the people who work at State House, are they just PNU people, and or Kikuyu people? Are they only drawn from one part of society, or is it a multi-ethnically based staff?
Your Honor, it is multi-ethnic. I mean, if it is a police contingent, it's a police contingent, and it's the members of that particular contingent who are assigned there, and they all come from different communities, and the same applies to the staff. In fact, I think at the time, in reference, the head of the State House staff was a person from the Coast Province, was not a person from Central Kenya.
Let's turn to another place in Nairobi now, the Nairobi Members Club, where witness 4 alleged he went with others in the morning of the 3rd of January 2008 at breakfast time. Are you a member of the Nairobi Members Club?
Yes, Your Honors, I am a member of Nairobi Club. We call it Nairobi Club.
Is Ambassador Muthara a member of that club?
Your Honors, I'm not aware whether he is a member or not.
The 3rd of January 2008 is a particular date. Can you remember the events that took place on that date and where you were?
Your Honors, on the 3rd of January, I was basically at home. If I recall correctly, I think on the 2nd of January there had been calls for mass action within the city of Nairobi, or a 1,000,000-man march. So for security reasons, really, I was basically at home, because it was not advisable to be out, because there was an issue of this so-called mass action of the demonstrations take place. If I were to leave and be recognized, it might be a security problem. So I was largely at home on that particular day.
Did you go to the Nairobi Members Club on that day?
No, Your Honors, on that day, like I said, I was largely at home as a result of the circumstances I've just put to you.
In the month of January 2008, did you go to the Nairobi Members Club at all?
No, Your Honors, I did not go to the Nairobi Members Club at all during the month of January. In fact, I don't think I've been there for a very long time.
I see the time. We'll get down to the club rules after the break, Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Thank you for being so strict about the timing. I suggest that now we suspend the hearing and we shall proceed thereafter. You will have half an hour more, and thereafter the floor will be to the prosecutor. So I suspend now the hearing. We shall resume it at 4:30 after the break.
All rise,